I'm Dr. Yvonne Cason, the president of Spiritual Awakenings International. Welcome, everyone, to our Spiritual Awakenings International Presents. I hope you had a lovely vacation in July, which was our Spiritual Awakenings International vacation month. So we're delighted to start our late summer and fall program with today's presentation by Dana Taylor, which is going to be absolutely fabulous. Anyway, we always love to know where people are joining us from. Please take a moment and type into the chat where it is that you're joining us from today. I am joining you from Toronto, Canada, and our speaker today is joining us from the beautiful Redwood Forests in Northern California. So so let's see where people are joining us from today. We have Newport, Oregon, Gravenhurst, north of Toronto, Ottawa, Long Beach, California, Denver, Connecticut, Minneapolis, Norway. Welcome across the ocean, San Francisco Bay, Texas, Arizona, Boulder Creek, California. Welcome, everyone, for wherever you're joining us from. Well, it is my great pleasure today to introduce our speaker, Dana Taylor. Dana is a Reiki master. She's an award-winning book author and a wellness advocate who currently lives in Northern California. Her books have received honors such as the Golden Quill Award and the Independent Spirit Book Award. Dana leads guided meditations and writes about energy healing, spirituality, and healthy living on her beautiful website, supernalliving.com. Dana is also very busy as a Spiritual Awakenings International volunteer. She serves on the Spiritual Awakenings International Advisory Board, is the executive assistant to the president, that would be me, and serves as our Spiritual Awakenings International YouTube channel administrator. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dana Taylor.
Well, thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you to the board for inviting me. And thank you to everybody who is here today. I see a lot of familiar names, and I'd gotten some heads up that they were going to be here. So, hello, this is more kind of a party than a presentation. Um, I am indeed Dana Taylor, and most of the time when you watch something like this, you expect to get somebody's basically their spiritual memoir. In my case, it might have been that I was born kind of a sad little girl, and then I had mysterious illnesses that started when I was about 9 years old. And that was kind of difficult all the way through my life until I was 50, and then met this wonderful Reiki master who just changed my life at 50. Then 2 months later, I watched a very close friend through that same wonderful Reiki master, Helen, become cured of a disease that was supposedly incurable. And that would be what you'd expect to hear, but you're not going to hear that story today. Sorry. If you want to hear that story, you can get this book, Ever Flowing Streams. Yes. But instead, we're going to talk about what happened after that, when the magic really started to happen. And I have a million stories, but today I'm only going to tell you three. So let's kick it off and let's see if I can do this wonderful thing we've been practicing. And here we go. Yes, indeed. Yvonne already told you all the wonderful things I do for SAI, so there you go. Supernalliving.com is where I have been writing things for about 15 years. I was originally a drama major and then really got into writing. So the books and supernalliving.com. I am a follower of Christ and a Reiki master, and all of the healing work I've done is really the underpinnings of my spiritual life. And of course, the meditations. Carolina, you are here. You were the first person to come into the waiting room, and it's wonderful to have wonderful friends who support you along the way. And those meditations are all on my website. but let's get to the meat of it. So there we go. You signed up to come to see a presentation that's called Angels and Apports. And many of you would be like, so what is that? An apport is a physical object that is said to appear mysteriously, seemingly transported through non-physical means. Some people call them manifestations. You've probably heard or even experienced yourself of contacts from beyond the veil, very often of loved ones, who all of a sudden you see you're finding coins, perhaps feathers, personal objects, stones, flowers. Uh, but most of the time when those things happen, you're like, really? I'm not sure about that. I know that's been my experience, but if you go through history and some spiritual literature, especially, um, here's when I read this book. Now I know, Yvonne, you're really a deep follower of Paramahansa Yogananda. I've been practicing that, correct? And I know you told me you've read this book many times. Uh, and when I read it just last year, I got to page 16. I was like, it's an apport. And there's a wonderful, wonderful story in this great book of his mother received she when he is still very young, and she died early in his life, but a spiritual master came to her and told her the wonderful, amazing things that her son was going to do, and then said, I'm going to give you an amulet that you are to give him, but you have to make sure he can't have it until a year after you have passed from this life. And so the next day she was meditating, and the amulet appeared in her hand as she was meditating. So you know when something like that happens, that it's truly from above and extraordinary. And indeed, he did get it about a year. His older brother gave it to him after his mother had passed about 18 months prior. And it set him off on the biggest part of his journey. They'd also been told that it would disappear at some point in time when his real guru master showed up, and that is indeed what happened. So there's one that is an apport in that book. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. Okay, now the Bible. You don't, they're not referred to as apports in the Bible, but I noticed when I asked my faithful friend ChatGPT to give me biblical apports. Well, of course, manna from heaven. That's Exodus 16:4. And the miracle when Jesus takes the loaves and the fishes and they just keep going and going and going and they feed the multitudes. Those would also be considered apports. And I noticed when I really thought about it that the biblical ones generally have to do with food and provision and showing you these miraculous ways that God provides for his people. That seems to be the main message of apports in the Bible. So, what's the purpose of this presentation? Why did I decide to do this? Because like I said, I got a million stories, and I actually had thought I would be talking about something else, but it just felt like this was what I needed to talk to right now. And I think the reason for that is that we're living in a time where you need to have a sense that you're not alone, that you will be provided for, that there are spiritual helpers. There's your team out there waiting for you to discover that they're there. And my hope is that from this presentation, you might finish saying, well, she seems to be in contact with her spiritual team. Do I have a spiritual team also? I hope that at the end of this presentation, you'll at least consider the possibilities of finding out who's on your team. All right, story number one. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my mind set on this. All right. After the incident, the beginning of the magic happening in 2005, I became a Reiki practitioner and a Reiki master. really, really got into healing. I had a Reiki room in my house, and people started showing up for Reiki. It was amazing. And after a while, I started noticing it seemed like there was somebody else in the room with me. Uh, it felt like I was sensing a blue presence. I wasn't sure why that was true, but it just seemed like it was blue. One time, my friend who was healed of that terrible disease was sitting, and she became very gifted herself. We were all sitting praying, and the girls, there were two sisters from California, my best friends, Sue and Paula. And the three of us, after 2005, would get together and have weekly prayers in my house, and all kinds of wonderful things happened. And one time, Paula looked up and she said, "There's a bright blue." She said an angel, and I took it at that, but I wasn't sure actually if it was an angel. And she said, "It's just wonderful." But we also could feel cold. There would be this cold presence that would come in, especially on my right side. I could feel the cold. Uh, and it started happening more and more in the healing room. So I want to tell you this one particular story. This is Joan's healing, because for me it was the biggest healing experience I ever had. And Joan was a client who came to see me, and she's a banker. I think Joan may be here. I know Joan's going to sign up and and hear the story eventually if she's not here right now. And Joan came in to me first, and was she'd had a car accident. And being a banker, she's a very left brain girl, very intelligent. And we worked on the after effects of the car accident. But one day she called me, and she got, so she just loved being in the energy. She's also turned into a long-term friend from client. And she called me and she said, "Can I come in? I really would love to have a session with you." Well, it was September in Southern California when the Santa Ana winds were blowing strong and hot. And I warned her, I said, "It's going to be really, really hot in that room. Are you sure you want to come that day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?" "Yes, yes." "Oh, the heat doesn't really bother me." And I thought, well, it bothers me, but okay, you can come on. So she came to my house at 1 o'clock on a very hot afternoon in Southern California, no air conditioning. And I took her back. She got on the Reiki table, and I first noticed cool. I thought, "No, this has got to be, this can't be. There cannot be any." I knew it. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no way there was cool air coming in out of those windows, but I could feel the cool. And then I looked over on the wall, and I started seeing, like you see the angel wings on this. It was like that, only it was an outline against the white wall. And they just kind of kept going up and down and up and down. And I'm like, okay. So I got it at her head, and I started running the energy and running the energy. Now, Joan had been living for 15 years with a strange eating condition. She had been fine until the age of 25. And then all of a sudden, she could no longer eat most of the food that she had been used to eating. And Joan's a foodie. She loves beautiful, gorgeous food. And it really disrupted her life. She got to the point where the physical manifestations of being allergic and skin eruptions and things, she had to eliminate everything, start from scratch. And by the time I met her, she was handling it pretty well, but she was not eating any meat whatsoever, was only eating basically tofu, rice, and vegetables. And she was not that happy with that situation, but at least she was functioning well. And we weren't even addressing it because it was her life and it had been going on for 15 years. But I knew that about her. Anyway, so at that point, I started moving around her body, and I could feel more and more energy coming through me. I could still see those angel wings going up and down the wall, and it was getting cooler and cooler. And when I reached over her stomach, all of a sudden I got very strong stomach pains, extremely strong stomach pains. I said to her, "Oh my goodness, you're right. This food really affects you." And she apologized. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I had bread today," which made me laugh. So anyway, I started just going with it. The energy flowed through me, and my hands were moving, doing all kinds of motions and amazing things. I don't, if those of you who work in energy, you know how that is. You just go literally with the flow. And it happened, it went on for some period of time, and then it ended. And the session ended, and she sat up, and I was still amazed by everything I had felt. I said, "My goodness, did you feel all that?" She said, "No, feel okay, but nothing special." For me, it was like an amazing experience. For her, it was like, "Oh, nothing special." But in the next 24 to 48 hours, I started getting messages from her. "Oh my gosh, I just had a piece of chicken. Oh my gosh, I just ate this. I just ate that." I said, "Stop, stop, stop eating all that food. It's not going to be good for you to be chowing down that much that soon exploring." But she was very excited about truly the change in her life that had come from that encounter. And I knew that something amazing had happened that day. We later actually tied that to a past life session, but situation. But that's past life stuff is for another day. So I want to move on here. Let's see. Yes. So I'm still in the story about Asaniel. I asked uh, Paula at one point in time, "Do we have a name for this, whoever this is?" And she told me the name was Asaniel. But at that point, I wasn't sure what or who Asaniel was. Is it an angel truly? Is it some other kind of, because at that point I was reading about blue Sirius healers that were supposedly helping people. I knew it was blue. Well, Paula and I went, this picture is of this wonderful gal, Angela, the stone whisperer. She's just this amazing person, a healer in Hawaii, because by then, when this happened in, I think, had to have been around 2018 in Honolulu at this point, that's where I was living. We were spending a magical day with Angela, the stone whisperer, and she has a fabulous house just loaded with crystals galore. She had a labyrinth in her backyard, so much energy. I actually had a hard time staying awake in Angela's house because the energy was so strong. I was just like, "Oh, I'm going to pass out." But so Angela and I were standing in her kitchen, and I brought up the story about Asaniel and that I was working with this healing spirit, but I wasn't sure what it was. And all of a sudden, there got to be this cold column of air in the kitchen. I said, "Do you feel it?" So, and you literally you could stick your hand right in the cold column. One time I was doing actually a she I could also buy local. She could be like buy local. I was in a session one time with Helen on Zoom, and we could both suddenly feel the cold come in the room. So Angela and I both, it's kind of weird, but we both put your hands in and out, in it, testing it. Yes, it's definitely much cooler right in that spot. So that was all that happened at that moment in time. But the next day, Angela called me. We talked about what a great day we'd had because we'd done a lot of fun energy work. And she said, "Well, one of you left your charms here. You left your charm." And I said, "What charm?" We, to my knowledge, we did not lose a charm. She said, "Yeah, yeah, the angel charm." I said, "What angel charm?" And she told me, "Well, I found an angel charm. I'm sure it's not here before you got here. I'm sure it's yours." I said, "Where did you find that angel charm?" And she said, "On the floor in the kitchen." I said, "Was it where we had that cold column of cold?" She said, "Yeah, that's where it was." So let's see here. I got to do this, right? Whoop. keep going the wrong way. Sorry. Okay, this is it. Oh, you can see it pretty well. So she found that on the floor of her kitchen. And if you see, it really answers a lot of my questions. It was definitely uh, an angel and definitely a female. I mean, this is the bustiest angel I've ever seen. She's really breasty. And when I actually went to do this, and I've been wearing this a lot, and, this has been my talisman basically since about 2018, and it looks quite old. I don't have any idea where it came from except literally out of thin air. But what a gift! What a gift to get something like this. And when I asked AI to give me a picture of an angel, AI magically gave me, I think, a picture that looks very much like, it's blue. I didn't ask for blue. But if you look at it, see how close it looks to the actual pendant itself. She's a busty little angel, got the wings, got her feet curled up kind of in the same way as it does with this AI angel. So who knows? Anyway, Asaniel has just been a wonderful, wonderful companion along the way, especially in the Reiki room. I actually haven't felt her presence in a long time because I haven't been doing my Reiki work since COVID, basically since 2020. And it seems to me I haven't really felt that presence in a while. But I still am very much caught up in uh, seeing that wonderful reminder of God's provision. All right, that was story number one. This is story number two. I have to do a little setup here because this story has to do with not angels, but we also can really get connections with our past loved ones and our guardian angels. So this is a story with a loved one passed and also a guardian angel. And this is my husband, David Taylor. We were married in 1976. My goodness, next year would be 50 years. 50 years. I can't believe that. Anyway, he passed very quickly in a car accident in 2013. And after he passed, I started finding dimes in my house. And I really didn't pick up for a while that they were Apports. I just was like, boy, and I was the only living in the house. I'm thinking, well, did I turn my purse over? That's what you do, right? You get these things, but then you don't believe it. I mean, there were just dimes all over the place, but I didn't get it totally. I was like, is this real? But maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. But I will say, over the course of the 2 years after he passed, he made his presence known in so many ways. Especially, I have a lot of medium friends. I never went to a medium, but every time I was around anybody who had those abilities, he just pushed right in. He was a lawyer. He, and that lawyer personality just kept on coming through because when you pass from a car accident, there's a lot of things that you didn't get done. It was amazing how much information he got through with people so I could get on with technical things in life. So that's one character. And then this is fun. I love AI. Isn't it great? I mean, you just put these things in and there it is, right in front of your eyes. I was an only child, and I can recall having this idea that I had a little red-haired boy friend, uh, the same age as me, and a little girl. And the two of them were just, I'm thinking back now, when did I really think that? And I know where the house where I was living, where we moved from when I was 9. So I'm thinking maybe 4 or 5, I had a strong sense of it. And then as you get older, you go to school and that stuff fades. Um, but I do remember the little redhead boy. Then in 2010, I had a most astounding dream. At least I thought I actually, it didn't seem like a dream, and it was a shared experience with my good friend Sue. And it was that I was in a restaurant, and I can see the restaurant very clearly. It had a lot of red decor, and I was sitting across from these two adults, the redhead and the dark-haired lady. And we just had this really fun time. It was wonderful. And we had a very, I'm not going to go into what it was, but a very, very unusual and distinct discussion. And and I remember thinking that I'd had dinner with these two people. And Sue was sitting next to me in the restaurant. And one day, a couple of weeks into this, thinking about, now, where were those? Where was that? And who were those people? And I said, I looked up at Sue. I said, Sue, do you remember that we were at dinner with some people and we talked about blah, 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 blah. And I could see them. And she said, well, I do remember the conversation about blah, 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 but I don't really remember. I don't remember who that was or when that was. And I remember, and all of a sudden I was like, my God, that didn't happen. We didn't have dinner. I actually went to my calendars trying to figure out, could that have happened? And I'm like, no, I didn't. I did not have dinner with anybody in real life, but I think we met on a dream level. And then I realized that that's Brick and Angela. And I all of a sudden it just came to me. They were my guardian angels. Brick, I feel, is a like a bodyguard. Um, I don't know where I've come up with all this, but this is the scenario, true or not, but this is what I have been feeling for a long time now, that Angela works with me in the healing area. I've felt her presence a lot, like kind of like a Mayan shaman woman who's come into the healing rooms a lot with me. But Brick is just this, and it doesn't quite look like this. This guy's Brick's more like a pugilist, like he's kind of square, like he could just beat you up if he needed to. And I think maybe, I don't know, this is just me, that I perhaps came into this life saying, I really don't want to go back to that violent place. I do I have to go down to planet Earth, but if I do, I don't want to get caught up in violence, and I just want to be not hurt. And I've just had a sense, especially when that dream happened, I was living alone, David was gone, and I was living in SoCal, and there I could hear there were gunshots sometimes and helicopters going over. My house had no security, and I think that dream at that time was really showing me that they were there and they were guarding me and that it was okay. I was going to be fine. And I've never forgotten what they look like. I mean, they look a lot like that. So let's move on to the real story. All right, let's fast forward to October 2021. By now, we're living in COVID land, and I have moved to San Jose, living in a wonderful house up on the hill with a wonderful gal named Connie. Connie has allowed me to live in her house so I can be close to my children in San Jose, but thankfully not live in the same house with all of them. So Connie and I got along amazingly well for two strangers who got together once again through sort of magical means of connection. We did not know each other. And we had adopted a cat, and this is actually the cat. Her name was Shadow. Connie went away on a trip in October, and I was house sitting and cat sitting. And Shadow was a kitten at that point in time, and she one day I was cleaning and she jumped up on the mantle in the fireplace over the fireplace, and just I heard glass shattering, and she completely destroyed, as kittens would, and I should have moved the vase all over the ground, shattered glass, beautiful vase gone. So story learned. So 2 days later, I was home alone at night, and house was very dark, and I was doing yoga, and I started hearing shattered glass. And I kept hearing shattering glass, and I'm up there, downward dog and in my bliss and all that. And I'm hearing that shattered glass all of a sudden. And I thought, that cat? That cat is in the living room again and just breaking. My goodness, she's going berserk. Now, obviously, a cat would not break that much glass, and there was actually a guy who was breaking into the house and using something. And so the back French doors were just being shattered. But it never occurred to me in that 30 seconds I was hearing all that breaking glass that it was anything but the cat. So I got up and I was on a second story landing and I was going to head down the stairs and get after the cat when a guy came around the stairway and something came into me like this. I just turned into a monster at the of the staircase, and a deep guttural voice came out of me like that hurt my throat. Later I said, "Get out!" And I felt like I was just absolutely this huge monstrous creature. That guy he turned around. I Nobody has been scared straight like that guy was. He turned around, ran out the door. I heard a car door slam and a car peel out, and I was still at the top of the stairs. And then I came back to myself like, oh, oh, what just happened? And in my mind, I think that Brick just came in for a minute, popped in and just filled me with so much power and energy that that guy did not have a chance. And I was I was kind of amused and just I still couldn't get over it. Called the police and called a neighbor up the street and had to I did not spend the night there. I actually went over to the house that of the relatives, and everybody were gone. It was uh I don't know why the house was so well, the house that had been empty for several weeks, and I was sort of house sitting keeping an eye on it. So I ended up spending the night over there and calming myself down. The next morning, I was sitting on the couch and I had really vacuumed the living room in the previous days, and nobody else had set foot in that house. Um, and I was dealing with still coming down from having a home invasion and me scaring away the guy. Um, and I was sitting and praying in the living room, and I got up and got a second cup of tea. And when I came back after getting my tea, I looked down at my feet, and a bright, shiny nickel was right at my feet. And I'm telling you, I know that that nickel had not been there a few minutes before. I just know it had not. I had vacuumed it. I'd come in, I'd sat down. There was not a bright, shiny nickel that looks a lot like my husband. You see that face? Now, David Taylor could have maybe posed for that, that picture that's supposed to be of Thomas Jefferson. But when I saw the nickel down at my feet, so shiny, I was like, "Oh, honey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you." It was like, I'm here, I've got your back, I'm supporting you. The nickels and the various coins are just really messages of love from beyond, from David. Um, Last year, on a really difficult day when my daughter's father-in-law was passing in Missouri, but I was in California, uh, the afternoon he passed, found a bright, shiny penny on the roof of my car. Now, how does a bright, shiny penny get on the roof of your car when you haven't even gone anywhere? And then when I got in the car, there were more coins in the passenger side. And, I just knew, well, okay, David is just saying, I'm here with the family. I support you. Those are really, really special moments. And coins are one of the most common apports that loved ones can send. So that's story number 2. Now, story number 3 is an ongoing story. This story started earlier this year, and I started hearing, no, first I started seeing out of the corner of my eye, like, but kind of back here on my right side, always over here, like an orb, but it's not an orb, but it's more almost like a profile face, but it's just some kind of shimmering something over here on the side. And it's just disconcerting. you're wondering like, what is that? And you, of course, if you turn, you don't really see anything because it's in your peripheral vision, but it's there. And and then I started testing my eyes. Well, is there something wrong with my eyes? Is my vision going? I started testing, is that on both sides? If I close this eye, if I close that eye, it's always on the right side. It's never on the left side. And it's just there. And especially against walls, I can't see it so well. I see it better. And is it a shadow? No, it's not a shadow. It's testing, testing, testing. And then I started hearing, like every once in a while, a very particular high pitch, and lots of times with that thing going on, so I'm like, I think somebody or something is here. Hello, is somebody here? Um, then I started saying, well, if you're here, whoever you are, why don't you just leave me something? And somewhere I'd read somebody who was getting white feathers from an angel. So I said, why don't you just drop me some feathers? If there's somebody here, why don't you just drop me some feathers or send me something so I have a sense that this isn't just my imagination, that there's really something here. So I was in my bedroom, and you look over here and the top one, and you see I'm a neat person. I don't have a bunch of junk all over the place. I have everything placed just in its just right place. So that's where I take off my jewelry at night. And one night I looked over and I saw a box, and I was like, what's this box? I've never seen this box before. It was right behind, you can see, I restaged this, um, right behind that vase that always sits there. And so I picked up the box and I was like, what's this box say? And you have to have good vision. It says, best wishes. Remember, you are my angel forever. Happy every day. Oh, wow. What is that? So then I opened it up. What's in here? And here's the box. And I opened it up and it's got this really cool uh where I'm showing you. There we go. Um, uh chakra necklace in it. Like, oh wow. And then I sat down, I was just like, oh no, oh, I don't know. I just was overwhelmed by it. I sat down on my bed, which is right next to the dresser, and then that presence thing, because I have a white wall there. It was just like buzzing, just buzz, 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 buzz. So like, oh, I was very overwhelmed in that moment. I just sat there flummoxed because I'm holding this thing that says that, and then I could feel energy coming through me. It was just a big personal moment for me. I When I kind of pulled myself together, I called Sue and we talked about it. And it was, as much as I've had all these magical things happen, you'd think I'd just get used to it, but instead I kind of panic every single time something happens. Um, so I knew that I needed some spiritual help and to try to sort out what this now ongoing, whatever it is. So I called and made an appointment with my um, spiritual mentor, Helen, my original person that changed my life in 2005. And Helen is just great. She just has helped me through every thing that's happened in the last 20 years. And so I called her and we had a full-on session. And she's a great intuitive. Her guides are like, they must be professionals on the other side because they seem to tell you what you need to hear. Uh, they can get through a lot of information to the nitty gritty. But in this case, she came up with, she said, the angelic realm is not clear to me. And we kind of figured out, yeah, it's probably from some sort of angelic realm, but she doesn't really get straight information from the angelic realm. We did that night, however, discover the mystery of, after David died, I started hearing the name Frank. I'm like, who's this Frank? I don't even know who that Frank. And that's been like 11 years. And she said, I'm seeing somebody. Anyway, we discovered that the Frank I've been hearing the name of for 11 years is a great uncle of mine. My brother, my grandmother's brother was named Frank, and he came through loud and clear. And we figured that out. So finally, I now know who the Frank that's been with me for since David passed. Another part of the spiritual team. I'm so grateful to know that. But she did say I can't quite see it. I can see how they were watching you look at items to see what you liked. And so I can see that much, but I can't see any more than that, which I thought, okay. So I settled down the next couple of days. I will say I started having at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I know that a lot of people have this where you wake up with energy, um, the witching hour, and that's been happening to me since Hawaii days, where I would wake up and feel this energy come over me. And usually I call it the energy balloon, just comes up through my head, through my hands, through my legs, comes out and feels great. And then it's over. And then I kind of either go back to sleep or get up. But in the time period after getting the Apport, I was having like hours of energy, 2 hours just laying there, kind of semi awake, semi asleep, going, oh, wow, okay, just going with the flow. But I think maybe my frequency was being changed. I don't know. I just know that it happened. It's so palpable, it's so real. So I decided to sit down and just myself a couple days later and just pray and really just meditate like, let me get in contact with you. Let me see, who are you? So I was able to ascertain, I just saw uh, this bright, pearlescent orb. And this is as close as I could get from finding things. But what I'm seeing is an energetic being, and just so beautifully opalescent, just the bright silver with sort of bluish stuff coming through it. And then on top, it's kind of red. I perceived it kind of like a crown with some gold around it. But that's what I was seeing in this presence. And then I said, well, who are you? And I quickly got the name Celeste. Celeste. Well, I guess I should have asked before, Angel Celeste. So I quickly sent a message to Helen. I said, have you ever even heard of an Angel Celeste? Which I'm not really up on angels. And she quickly sent me this card, which is an angel card that Doreen Virtue did years ago when she was into her angel world. And to me, it really verified what I was seeing, because if you look, I'm sure that Doreen did this through meditation, and she sees something very similar. You see that she's seeing this silveriness. She put a body in it, whereas I'm just seeing that. But then she puts that red thing on top, which kind of looks like Doreen saw it as a light, and she made it into a light pole. But she's seeing the silver with the red over it, and I perceived it more as a red crown. But I appreciated getting this card from Helen because it verified what I was seeing in my mind's eye. So since then, I've been, I don't know, working with Celeste. I think Celeste probably is behind actually us doing this presentation this way. It just seemed like I'm not really at the wheel. But I feel like this is just an ongoing story that doesn't have an end point at this point in time, except I hope that we're in a relationship of co-creation for what's coming next. So I just wanted to give anybody who's interested in resources of how do you start finding your team, start coming up with your answers to maybe you sense it, that you have spiritual friends, but it's hard. I mean, I've been working on it for a very long time. And these are some books that I would really recommend. Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson. Laura Lynn Jackson is her first book, The Light Between Us, is a wonderful book. She's a very gifted medium. And Signs is really talking about how to recognize the signs of your loved ones that are wanting to speak to you, and how do you develop that? She's got a lot of information in there. Of course, I had one book, and then I've worked on this presentation like forever, it seems like, but even the last couple of days I had a different book, but it was like, no, you need to put Destiny of Souls up there. I'm like, okay, fine, we'll do Destiny of Souls. So Destiny of Souls is a classic. I realize I must have read it when it first came out, but it's still a top seller, even though it was written, I believe, about 25 years ago. And he really explores so many things, but one of the things he does explore is the way past souls are who've passed on are trying to communicate with their loved ones, and they have sometimes their loved ones are not receptive because they're not listening, they're not looking for it. But that's a great book for so many things, but especially with communication between souls. And then The Gentle Way is really a fun book, and it's primarily talking about connecting with your guardian angels. And Tom T. Moore is in the entertainment field. It's sort of a jazzy book and an easy read, but he talks about that guardian angels are there all the time with you from birth till death, but they're very polite, and you need to ask for their permission to intervene in your daily life. And he puts it out very simply that you ask for most benevolent outcomes, MBOs. But anyway, I don't really like sounds of those letters together. So I ask for most benevolent outcomes, and you do it on a daily, uh, everything that you do during the day, especially when I get in the car. I'm always the kids now. I have lots of children, grandchildren, and we get in the car. Aren't you going to ask for the angels? And so we always start out with this. We ask our angels and our guides to have us go safely, to come back safely. That everything we do has a most benevolent outcome. So they're being trained on that every single time they get in the car, and I do that segment intention stuff that comes from the Abraham Hicks world, that you look at your day and you ask for help every day all along the way. And so this is my last slide. I started, we picked out the word supernal, which means on high. The supernal friends, Sue and Paula and I and Helen, uh, now, gosh, 20 years ago, to explore all of these wonderful things when the magic really can happen, when the love and the light comes into your life. I would love it if anybody here has got some Apport stories or connection stories. If you want to email them to me at supernalfriends@yahoo.com, maybe I could at least make a post, or we could even make a little book. Wouldn't that be fun? Because I think people are shy about sharing these things. Did this really happen? Did the hummingbird come from my mother? Did the lights flicker on and off from my dad? There's so many ways that people from the other side, because your loved ones go from being physical to non-physical, but they are eternal, and they are wanting you to recognize them and continue to know that they love you. And that is my presentation. So I need to go up here and do my stop share. And there we are.
Well, thank you, Dana. That was an absolutely beautiful, inspiring presentation about apports. Made me thinking about several things that happen in my life. But I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Brian Sackett, who is a board member of Spiritual Awakenings International, and ask him to please moderate the question and answer period. Brian.
Great. Thank you very much, Yvonne. And thank you, Dana, for that amazing presentation. I want to welcome everyone and ask you, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I will then ask those questions as we move forward here. If you're like me, you didn't have any trouble really paying attention. I just, it was a gripping story, Dana. Thank you. So one of the questions I have is, you had two different angel presences that really came strongly into your life, the one with the Apport and then the Celeste angel. Um, What are the differences in qualities of those two angels? How do they affect you differently?
Yeah, yeah, that really is interesting to me. I've pondered. Asaniel was a real helper in the healing room, and she manifested with that cold air and worked through me. But I would say that I never felt like I was real connected to her on a daily, intimate basis. It was like we were partners in the healing time. She came, she went, seemed to know that lights were on to work on healing, and then she was gone. And it was kind of a sober, somber kind of personality. Whereas whatever's happening with this Angel Celeste thing, it's much more a unity of frequency, I would say. And maybe it's because I've worked a lot harder through the years. I think it's a time, it's my time, I guess, to be able to handle this. That it seems like, I mean, she's here, right over here, and with me and part of me, and she's really got a lot more fun and uh, sense of humor, I think, a kind of sly personality, and that whatever's going to happen with Celeste, I think is going to be just a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you. Um, so Yvonne has a couple questions. I'll ask both of them. She wanted to know, did your husband ever gift you with coins when he was alive? And uh, go ahead and answer that. I'll ask the second one after that.
No, I don't think he did. My impression with the coins routine is that it's something that's fairly easy for people on the other side to manipulate, and he could do it. He figured it out, and but in coins in our regular life was not a thing. No.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Yvonne also wanted to know if you ever had an apport appear and then later disappear.
Wondered about that. I think maybe sometimes the coins have done that, to tell you the truth, because I'll think, well, what happened to that? Did the kids take it? But I think maybe his coins have disappeared. Because, and I think leaves them a lot, and some I have kept on some, but some are just like they're gone. So I think maybe that has happened. Thank goodness, I do have. This is terrible, but I always had a thing. Well, if he gives you jewelry, hang on to the jewelry. So the jewelry I've kept, but the coins I think have actually come and gone.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Mary wants to know, how can I connect with my husband's ancestors?
How can I connect with my husband's ancestors? Well, that's an interesting question. Um, I think one way to just work on connection is simply to really start spending time calling on those ancestors. And uh, we need to turn off the electronics. You've got to sit in a chair and start learning how to listen, and then getting maybe a journal and start just writing some things down and see what ideas come to you. And it's also possible, of course, to contact somebody like Helen, because she's got she can sometimes, I've found, connect especially with ancestors in a way that I don't seem to have a direct line the way some people do. And there are some really great mediums around now, just it's really growing, and they have access to those other dimensions that just flows through. But I think inside you you have a sense of, this is true, this is not. I think your internal intuition can really verify those things. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Kira would like to know, what are your thoughts and experiences of spirits interface with birds? My grandfather visited me through cardinals flying in front of my car. When I acknowledged his visitation, the birds stopped. Are birds very close to spirit?
Yes, especially if you read Laura Lynn's book about signs, birds are a big one, and cardinals especially. Birds have been the way my daughter Sarah has felt that David has come through to her. There's been many instances she's called me. Dad. there has been. The day of the funeral I told you about last year. There were some bird sightings by our family in Missouri. I think birds are a big one. Hummingbirds, especially, and cardinals. Hummingbirds, cardinals, and butterflies all seem to be ways that could be influenced by spirits on the other side to send them as messengers.
Thank you. Yeah, I've experienced the hummingbirds as a communication. Marina would like to know, why did you stop doing Reiki?
Well, I haven't really. I stopped largely in 2020 because we couldn't touch people. We couldn't be in their spirit, in their place anymore for a while. And then I just started having so many grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren I'm taking care of all the time now. So um, that's really why I haven't quit forever, I think, but there's only just so much, and that's a lot of work to set up the table and have the clients and all of that. I do a lot of distance work every day. I've got prayer groups, the Hawaii group, the Unity Church of Hawaii. I'm still a member of that group on Zoom. Every Wednesday we meet and pray for people and send distance healing. So I do a lot of distance healing work, but hands-on work, I just don't have the time for it right now in my life.
Great, great, thank you. Robert would like to know, is there significance in having a coin appear as opposed to a feather or other things? And do you think there is a meaning to each type of item as opposed to others?
From what I've read from some sources, it seems that dealing with metal and electronics seems to be easier, perhaps, this is just my guessing, than some other things because it's all dealing with frequency. I don't know how it all works, but it seems that the coins are an easier thing for them to do. And feathers, I've heard about, the feather thing. I don't know about that. There was some book I read about they were finding little white angel feathers, but I don't know that feathers are as common as coins and other metal related things. And now with our electronics, when my dad died, oh my gosh, everything was flashing and I had to unplug the doorbell because he was setting it off so much. So but that makes sense to me. Energy to energy, they have their energy and they can energize other things. That's the most common thing we're seeing more and more, I think, of contact, but it's hard to recognize it.
Interesting, thank you. Victoria would like to know, she says, Apports, pennies, dimes, nickels, why different coins? Do they have a special meaning?
That I don't know because David, it feels like David has sent me different things. At first, it seemed like dimes were maybe that was easier. I don't know. But dimes don't seem to be ubiquitous. So I think once he found that those nickels that looked a lot like him showed up, it seems like he's sent me more of those uh, Jefferson nickels. It seems like the shiny things. Somehow there's something about a shiny new one. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but I suspect it has something to do with the energetic properties of the coins.
Great, thank you. Carolyn would like to know, have you ever wondered if the angels are part of your higher divine multidimensional self?
Carolyn doll. Uh, I don't, I think that's a jump. I don't think of the angelic realm as having been human, I guess, and being here in this plane, particularly. So I got to give that one probably a no. I don't feel like I've been an angel myself, but the angelic realm, I think, are very close to us. The Bible's full of the angels coming and talking to us. So obviously the messengers, the helpers they're there.
I think I understood her question to be asking, um, are these angels manifestations of our own higher dimensional, interdimensional beingness somehow? But
I don't know.
any,
Well, yeah, of course we go with the I that we're all connected ultimately, right?
yeah. Mary says, I get pennies from heaven at times. I'm troubled at times when I'm troubled about a certain situation. So it's not a question, but comment. Tim says, great presentation. Do you think that dreams may provide easier access to these angel guides? For me, sometimes that seems to be so. I also talked to people who met Satya Sai Baba, who is known for producing many apports. They actually witnessed them manifest. Thank you so much. So, about dreams
Yeah.
providing easier access.
Well, I do think there's especially some people have really communicate in their dreams. And yeah, because and I've had the last time I saw my husband David, it was 6 months after he passed. And we had a really strong encounter. And it was sort of a dream and it sort of wasn't. It was in that witching hour. And it's a time where your consciousness opens up, I think, to other realms. So yeah, I think dreams are big, big communication.
Thanks. So I'm not sure who B is, but she says, or he says, I find feathers all the time now, white and other colors. And Lucia says, David and Dimes both begin with a D, as does Dana.
I love alliteration. It's one of my favorite things. Apples and apports, angels and apports,
Yeah.
angels, apples and apports. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Dana. You've talked a little bit about the spirit guides and the angels and that, but what practical advice would you give people that are interested in getting more in touch with their own guides? What would you advise people about that?
Well, I think you have to learn to trust your inner uh visions. And I believe in journaling a lot, but lots of times I will see things. I go into meditation and I'll get pictures. I think you need to write what those pictures are because then they're gone. They're like dreams. But when you sit down and just really go with it and see images, imagery, because they're not talking in English, they're talking generally in other things. That you'll get some English, but you'll also get a lot of signs, a lot of write it down and describe it, then go back and look at it, and you might find communications in that way that really are astounding. And the more you find validation coming through these things, the more open you are, that then the communication just grows and grows and grows. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Well, no more questions are appearing in the chat. So if you all have questions, please enter them. Um, I'm curious, I did a talk in June about shared death experience and then what it taught me about the afterlife. And the picture of the afterlife was a lot different than what I had thought the afterlife was like. So I'm curious what your impression of life on the other side, maybe with David or any of
Yeah.
those things. What would you say about how is that this different or the same as what most of us think of the afterlife?
Well, I think, of course, I'm influenced by a lot of my reading and things. So I used to think hopefully that you'd get on the afterlife and you'd know everything, but it's becoming clear to me that that's that's not the case. The work that Father Nathan Castle has brought, where he goes, he's dealing with people who are stuck and then go into the afterlife, and what he shows is this very, very complicated. There appears to be different I wouldn't say stratas, levels of where people are in the afterlife. And it appears that we do very much the way we create our own lives here, which I really believe in that we are busy creating our own lives. It appears that we are also busy creating on the other side and learning. Um, I don't think it's at all simple. I think it's very, very complicated. And it really matters where you are in your spiritual development, how the afterlife looks, I think. It
Great.
does appear that there are a lot of helpers, lots and lots of helpers. You really get that with Destiny of Souls too, that we're not alone, that there are just so many spirits helping us on both sides.
Great. Thank you. Mary says, thank you, Dana. You've helped me so many times throughout the years. Great presentation. And Carolyn says, as a friend and Reiki client, I can attest to feeling the presence of others in your Reiki room. Is it different angels for each client, or is it your team helping you each time?
Well, I think sometimes people come in with their own people. A lot. Well, everybody comes in with their own people. And sometimes I have called on the um, well, I don't like this. I don't like this term that Madame whatever her name was back at the occult lady. She named them the Great White Brotherhood. You know, the physicians on the other side. I recently heard their Indian name is the Rishi San. I like that term a lot better. And I have connected with them through working with something called the MAPS program, working with great physicians on the other side. And sometimes I felt like somebody's come in to really help in the room. Um, Sometimes there's their relatives that have come in. I remember being with somebody's grandmother. So there's lots of presences coming and going in those rooms. And sometimes they're specifically for that person. And sometimes they've been my people that are, I'm just like, I'm just the human here. Y'all just do the work. Okay. I'll just hold the space and we'll let the magic happen. And then it will be over. So it's really teamwork, lots of teams working all the time.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Kira says, thank you so much for sharing your magical stories and encouraging us to reach out and connect to spirit support. Mary says, I'm rereading Ever Flowing Streams again.
You're the only one, honey. It was published in 2010, so you know.
So I have a question. Now that you're not formally doing Reiki in the room, are you still finding these angels and helpers uh, affecting, like maybe when you're watching your grandkids or you're working with distant clients or you're doing meditations? How are they still in your life and how are they showing up?
Well, I feel, and I guess I didn't mention this, that one of the things that happened when I knew that somebody else was here was that I started getting a new energy move signature. And I've talked about this with Yvonne that I get so much jumping. I mean, my body's just jumping all over the place. When I start praying, the energy is so palpable, it comes through. And so if I'm sending energy to someone, for a long time, I've had that kind of medical intuitive thing where I'll get the images of bodies, the inside, it's seeing inside something. I can't tell you what organ it is, but I can see it and then start working with it. In that case, very often I'll feel like the team, whoever the team is working with me in distance Reiki, working on somebody. And that has been going on for so long and has been validated so many times. Uh, I know with a recent person, um, I got something about kidney stones, and we were working on the kidneys and all that. And it just seems like the distance thing really doesn't matter. It's almost easier to say, "Can you go pray for this?" and then sit in my chair and then send the energy and work with the team and work with their team. Lots of times with healing stuff, there's also emotional issues. That's so often what is part of the problem or maybe the genesis of the problem. So it's complicated.
Great, thank you. Carolyn says I should read Ever Flowing again too. That teaching has helped me pray for others, especially my little dog during his health challenges. And Dana has done distance Reiki for him and I.
Mhm.
And Marina says, absolutely loved your talk. So inspiring. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Let's see. Michelle says, do I need to understand the chakras for Reiki to help? I know really nothing about chakras and had just one Reiki treatment that didn't seem to help.
Well, I think the chakras are, I don't know that it's essential for you to know about chakras and have Reiki now, but it's really nice to start coming in contact with your energy body, because that really is something that Americans and Western medicine doesn't deal with, is the way our energy flows. And Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine understands and deals with the whole energetic flow of the body, and the field that goes beyond it. So it's not essential to understand the chakras. It's just sort of the base where you begin to have a completely different viewpoint of health. And in Western medicine, we're more mechanical. We're still built up on it's all about nutrition and the physical. But I mean, when your energy is low, you can feel it. Energy is what makes you go. And when you die, it's because the last spark of your energy is simply gone. So it's something that I think looking at other modalities and learning the totality of how it all works together really helps you understand how to become and lead a much healthier lifestyle. I mean, we could get into eating dead food rather than live food, but that's a whole other topic.
Thank you. I think a different Dana says, thank you for your exceptional sharing. Carolyn says, supernaturalfriends.com has many free meditations by Dana that I use daily. And Michelle wants to know, did the one friend you healed with eating issues remain able to eat everything she likes again?
Yeah, I think Joan may be here. I don't know, but she's turned into, oh, there's Helen. Bless you. Helen, Joan has done very well. There's still things that she's got to work on, but on the whole, for her to go from eating such a limited diet to a much broader diet has lasted for her, because we've taken vacations together, and I can tell you that girl loves to order off the menu some really fun stuff.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dana. I'm going to turn this back to Yvonne now. I really appreciate your presentation, and it's obvious that all these people in the chat did as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, for an absolutely fabulous presentation. It was really thought-provoking and inspiring, and also comforting to know that we have others watching and helping us on the other side all the time. So thank you so much.